I expect to find miracles, therefore I help to co-create them. I have been practicing in that way. I have been living through that lens of, I wonder what is possible for over 20 years in my practice, with a lot of practice and a lot of passion to serve. It's amazing, what can happen.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about transforming the way your mind, body, and energy work together. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Amy Albright. Dr. Amy is the CEO and head facilitator of Holon. She has a background in cognitive psychology and Chinese medicine and has spent over 2 decades helping people break free from trauma, anxiety, and limiting beliefs by combining neuroscience, real-time neurological change, and spiritual wisdom. You can reach Dr. Amy at her website, holonexperience.com, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Amy. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you. We're going to have a great time, I know.
Yes, we are. And I'm so excited. And it was so fun when I was checking out your website and reading the line that said, the cutting edge intersection of science and spirit. And you know what? That's not a sentence that goes together very often. And the words science and spirit don't often intersect, or at least we aren't aware. Sometimes we even think that they're at odds. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I would say that people think of life as kind of like that pie chart, and you have family and you have work and you have spirituality as if it's like a little segment, right? Or science might be in some people's minds, like living off in a segment. But really, we start to understand life when we look through so many different lenses as concurrent truths, not as oppositional truths. And I think that right now, with everything that we have going on in the world, we've gotten to be really good at recognizing where there's pushes and pulls, where there's people screaming at rights and wrongs. And so this merging of the science and spirituality, it's something that I've been learning for myself for 30 years. And I feel like it's more timely now than ever that we really understand that it's can be the exploration of two sides of the same coin.
Isn't that lovely? Two sides of the same coin. We
Mm-hmm.
are one. And that is something that is a really good reminder, no matter what topic we're on. And I think part of something that we need to learn is the word and. We have a
Yes.
tendency to think this or that and
Mm-hmm.
not recognize that two things can be true at the same time, or there is an intersection of those two things. So it is easier to do or, and that's why we have, our kind of fairy tales that when we're children, we have a good guy, they're all good. We have a bad guy, they're all bad. Easy to understand. Real people, we are a mix.
Right.
Real life has a lot of ands in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe a little trickier to understand, but it's reality. So we're going to talk
Yeah.
about some ands. Let's put these kind of things together. Now, I don't know where you want to start, but one thing that fascinated me when I was checking out the website was the discussion on the different brain frequencies and
Mm-hmm.
how we have our alpha and our beta and our theta and our delta and our gamma. And each one has a different function and
Mm-hmm.
functions at a different time. And I thought, that is something I hadn't really considered. So can you expand on that a little bit? And then you can take it wherever direction you'd like to go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have different waves, and we could think of them kind of like colors on a rainbow. Like if the brain is doing a whole concert of things simultaneously, and then there are different bands of color or of frequency, and each of those has a different effect. So if we're in a delta predominant space, we're probably deep asleep. If we're in a theta predominant space, we might be kind of asleep or dreaming kind of state, but not full dreams because that's REM, which is a different place. Alpha is much more of a meditative or embodied state. When people don't have enough alpha, that's typically when they reach for alcohol or some other agent to try to push maybe their dopamine. We could shift over to the neurochemical level to try to get themselves to feel alive again and connected to their body. But a healthy alpha is just there, you know, in our meditative state and also kind of through our day and through our rest. And then there's beta, and beta is really the ability to think and to talk like we are right now. And then high beta, it gets a little iffy. It can be action, but it can also be anxiety. So if we get stuck in high beta, it's like we're pushing on the steering wheel to go faster, and we're just like the little hamster on a wheel, just absolutely hung up inside of our to-do list and making checklists for our checklists and that kind of a thing. Like high beta, it's a useful tool, but we're supposed to be able to put it back down. And so I think with the way that a lot of us might get stuck, it might be in that high beta feeling. But what's amazing is that beyond high beta is gamma. And gamma is where we take what looks black and white or right and wrong or possible and impossible, and we merge those realities. And those are where we have those lightning bolt moments of insight, those moments where we can drop into forgiveness, where we have an innovation happen with a work project or a problem we're having with our kids. It's that ability to bring together disparate ideas that don't seem to go together. It's also the frequency of consciousness.
And
So,
isn't it
yeah,
interesting? Oh, I'm so sorry.
no,
We were talking about the concept of and that's
right.
what you're talking about here with we need to have those gamma rays so that we can have an and rather than only ors. So
Yes.
that is fascinating. And as you're describing these, it just is so fascinating. You talked earlier about how we kind of consider life as a pie chart or
Hmm.
maybe a bento box where I have this and I
Oh,
have
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think, we have our mental, we have our emotional, we have our physical. And here, as you're describing this physiological, uh, these processes in our
Hmm.
brain and the way that it makes us think and feel. So when we're talking about our feeling, and when we're talking about, I feel empty and I want to reach for that bottle of alcohol,
Hmm.
and sometimes people dismiss it and say, these are just mental and emotional issues. They're not real. And what you're saying here is, guys, this is physiological. This is
Yes.
our brain.
Yes.
So if it makes you feel better, like this is a physiological issue that I'm dealing with, and then you can eliminate the shame or the guilt,
That's right.
whatever's going along with it. It's just like, guys, this is your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Like if your car is pinging, you don't go into shame. You take it to the mechanic and you get it fixed. It's not that big of a deal, right? Like maybe they have to pull some stuff out to get down to the root cause, but this isn't a big thing to put a lot of emotional charge on. I think that what can happen though is that we try to live our lives as though we should be perfect and we should hit all these ideals and standards. And then additionally, we're not given any kind of like an owner's manual on our actual neurobiology, right? It's not simple to understand. Even in talking about the waves, I'm very much making them simple. And then there's also like structures and communication zones and hubs and networks. It's like understanding how train stations work and how fast the train timing should be and where all of those train stops are, right? There's layers and layers of information that those of us who work in the neurosciences fields need to understand in order to help somebody with it. But as far as if you're having or have had a state of reality, whether that's been a transcendent, blissful moment, or whether that's been the worst of depression or the most bizarre, rumination of figment of imagination or catastrophe kind of thinking, or, I mean, basically the whole entire bandwidth of human perception and experience is explained in neurosciences, in neuroendocrinology, even like how does the brain impact hormones, how do the hormones impact the brain, how does the gut impact the brain, like we're actually this concert of things, whether we understand them in a scientific or intellectual level at all, of all of these forms and factors, and we can't be separated out from it. We're not brains with machines, right? We're actually experiencing our own biology in every moment.
What an interesting image, a brain and a machine.
Yeah.
So we are one. We are one thing. I loved the word that you chose as a concert. And I can just
Mhm.
imagine that we're at a concert. We have the violins, we have the cello, we have all these different instruments going. And when it's everything is in harmony, it's beautiful.
Hmm.
When things aren't in harmony, then it's not so good. So now
Yeah.
that you've kind of listed, these are some of our different brain waves. And here are some of the issues that can happen when we are out of sync. So, how can we get that harmony going again? What do I do? I mean, I imagine you're doing neurofeedback. You're finding out here's where you're at. Is that where you start?
There's a lot of places we can start if people are coming to do our on-site work. We definitely start with an EEG, which is an electrical study of the brain to make a really extremely precise diagnostic. And then we create a treatment program on the brain level that exactly matches that while we bring them through a very spiritual program. A very,
It's
I
so
know.
cool.
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Come in and say, here I am. Test my brain, see
Uh-huh.
where I'm at. Okay, and now we're going to give you a treatment program tailor-made to match what situation is going on in your brain.
Uh-huh.
And we're
And
combining this with spirituality. It's
that's right. Holding you as a timeless soul on an endless journey who has so much depth and dimension, just it's an incredible recognition because even if my colleague, the real neuroscientist of the team, were to look at someone's brain, he can tell them about who they are just by looking at the squiggly lines on the page and the charts and the diagrams and the reports down to minute. You tend to overthink, but not about the rest of the world. You tend to overthink about yourself. You have a mother wound. You had a head trauma that's not all the way resolved. You have a tendency to not feel safe and not know how to create prioritization. Like it's all there. But there's the good news is that there's no bad news because if that's all been said, then we can work with it. We have treatments and trainings and ways of going about, so many, basically everything that we can name. But then while that's being revealed, there's also my capacity to sit with someone and say, as I feel into your essence, underneath all of the pretenses and the trying to, and the performances and the desire to be kind, even though you're not maybe having a great day, or, all of these things that people layer on that are essentially personality. This is the sense of who I feel that you are underneath all of that. If we hadn't ever had a trauma in your life, or if you'd been left to really unfold in the most magnificent ways, does this resonate as who you are at that depth, maybe even at a soul level? And that's another kind of recognition that most people aren't used to having. And it's not a psychotherapeutic one. It's one that's driven by my capacities to really deeply see and intuitively feel where people are at and where they're coming from. Who are they? So I propose that alongside of, this neurobiological data, right? We also have done a comprehensive health history, and then the body is telling us, wow, this person has a lot of digestive issues, or they have, whatever they might have going on. Maybe their health looks good. And that gives us more information. Sometimes lifelong struggles and themes, and at some point, who we think we are, gets shaped and gets reinforced because we don't have enough puzzle pieces to solve. So we have the ability to zoom in to the most minute of neuroscience and to zoom out to the broadest breadth of picture that one could have over with another, and be able to present that and be able to present a path through to whatever it is that they're looking for.
okay. My mind has absolutely blown, and I am intrigued. So, as you're discussing this, there was a phrase that came up multiple times, and it's who you are.
Yeah.
And that is huge. And I think it's a question that many of us don't even really ask.
Yeah.
If you say, who am I? You give your job title, or,
That's right.
or maybe
Or
your family description, or
that's right.
something like that. But who you are,
Hmm.
and who you really are underneath whatever experiences you've had. And
Hmm.
that ability to have that insight through this physiological means is amazing.
Yeah.
So, as you're describing this beautiful testing, a personal story has popped into my head, so I'm going to share. I
Mm.
have a beautiful grandson who got hydrocephalus as an infant, and it nearly killed him, and it caused brain damage.
Wow.
And throughout this process, and he's still alive, super grateful for that. But he, uh, as they do these scans, they can see this is the part of the brain that is damaged, and these parts are recovering and healing.
Hmm.
So he's able to speak, he's able to think, but the part of the brain where his motor skills is damaged, and half of his body doesn't work very well.
Oh, wow.
And so uh, through this experience, I was fascinated, um, besides horrified because it's my grandson and I love him very much, and it's hard to see him hurt in any way. But when we talk about a mind body connection, our brain and our body, it is not just this lovely little phrase that we shoot out there because
No.
whatever, it is literal. And with my beautiful little grandson, you can map out here's what's working
Hmm.
and here is what's not working.
Hmm.
And so his is physical, you can see it. But you're describing things that are much deeper where you say, oh, mother wounds, and here
Yeah.
is trauma, and here's this. And that is, I mean, that's amazing. I think we all just want to rush over to hold on and get a scan.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years of psychotherapy would it take to figure
Yeah.
that out?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you for telling me about your grandson. I didn't know about that. And whether we get into it in the scope of this conversation or a later one, I'd love to chat with you and see if I can help in any way.
Thank you.
Yeah. M- People do want to have a scan. And I think that one of the things, even before I started working with my neurosciences colleague, I started studying neurosciences back when I was 18 and I was an atheist. And it was when I was 18 years old that I had a really massive spiritual awakening type experience. And I shifted my studies to cognitive psychology rather than just strict neurosciences because I wanted to understand how the brain influences behavior. And I also started to study quite a lot more anthropologically because I realized that we can't understand the construct or the frame of who we think we are is so much contextualized inside of modern society, right? And who would we be if we still lived like our ancestors did, close to the land in our indigenous places, right? Like that's a very different version. It's a very different thing. So being able to shave off decades by looking through this lens is very different than the psychotherapeutic because, and I'm making generalizations, there's definitely psychotherapists or those that work in somatics, but generally speaking, I think that the frame that's out there is one of pathology. There's a brokenness and you're going to get marginally better if you show up for a lot of sessions of whatever. And here at Hold On, be it via the, kind of seeing straight through, like if you can find the straight point, that's the straight line between 2 points, you can get there faster versus sort of meandering, right? So when you have the ability to see into that depth of someone and you also via the science and their spiritual aspects, you have the ability to shorten the whole process with either of those by decades. And then you combine them together. And then what happens is not only are they synergistic in their nature, but the very fact that they can be combined together helps people to deconstruct figments of their imagination about what reality is. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. If I can make this sort of progress, I worked with somebody yesterday that had a long history of anger and there was a lot of abuse with dad and like all of these triggers could be right there and it was all underneath the surface and it had impacted him all these ways. And within about 15 minutes, we cleared it where there wasn't any more charge. And he had a completely different perception. But that didn't happen because of a psychological process that I brought him through. It was more of the emotional, spiritual process and working in very, very adept ways, honestly. Like I expect to find miracles. Therefore, I help to co create them. I have been practicing in that way. I have been living through that lens of, I wonder what is possible for over 20 years in my practice. So, what is possible when you lean in that way? An enhanced place of ethics and integrity. Like, how dare I hold a frame for a client where I believe in less than a miracle for them? That's very selfish of me, actually. That's very limiting of me for their behalf. It's also limiting of me for my behalf. So, inside of that sort of context, with a lot of practice and a lot of passion to serve, it's amazing, what can happen in one's practice. So, and then the people that I work with bring the other part of it. We can't do anything for them they don't really want. So it's really a synergistic team effort on all regards.
Wow, that was absolutely beautiful. And you brought up some very, very important points. And I'm sure I'm not going to catch them all. But one I loved was your overall view of things.
Mm-hmm.
And coming at this from there are different ways we can look at things. One is you're broken.
Yeah.
Just that's the way it is. And
Yeah.
maybe we can hobble along
Right.
versus I am expecting a miracle
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
I I believe that you are already okay. You're okay. And now we're going to help you to see that and become that as well. And I also
Yeah.
loved how you said and included this is synergistic. I'm not fixing you.
Oh no.
I'm a very, very important part of this process. And so are you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because otherwise we're baking in and reinforcing victim mentality and we're keeping them in. Maybe I can be marginally better when I'm saying my whole communication in every way that I am in this conscious, subconscious, verbal, nonverbal is I see the potent miracle that you are. I see that you have access to everything that you need. We have the ability to shift our biology based on our emotional and spiritual well-being. When I realized that, when I got into my first year of practice over 23 years ago, it hit me. It was very new back then. And what I realized is it's not a mind and body connection, but that we're actually working with, imagine it's water. So that if the body is like the ice version of it, and the emotions are the water, right? We're still working with H2O. If water vapor is the spiritual, then what we're working with is basically if something is misaligned in the spiritual emotional plane, it will crystallize into the body, whether that's neurotransmitters, whether that's like gut health or autoimmunity, we see it crystallize. So we go back to root cause. Is the root cause that they have a deficiency of a medication? No, they don't have a lack of a medication. That's not the problem. They don't have a lack necessarily of a vitamin. Although I'm not trying to say to people that they shouldn't take medication or take vitamins. Like I'm not giving any advice here, but the work what I'm working towards here is the frame. What I watched in my early years of practice that has continued to be true for all these years is that when people shift the emotional and spiritual level, suddenly their body begins to self-heal and they no longer have that disease paradigm. Interesting, right? Because we are a miracle to begin with. And if we try to make it reduced to whatever, and here's the thing too, science is so trendy and everybody just really would benefit to know that it's run by humans, which means it's fallible. Science is not God. Right. And so if we can hold that perspective, it's like science might provide massive clues. Like I am a geeky scientist also at heart, but it is not the totality because it is run through the mind and the perception, the imagination and the interpretation of humans. And therefore, it's got some funky little flaws and, misperceptions built in. And that's why when you look at data, you can find, and this is stuff that people that run around talking about data for whatever cause or product that they're supporting, they can show data that supports their point of view, but then you can almost always find the equal number of reports and studies that show that the opposite is true. And so, oh, wow. When I realized that in my early years of studying to be a researcher, um, I realize that it's so much the way that we humans perceive, report, and work with data that makes us frame reality. And maybe we should be more intentional about how we frame what reality is.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the data that often we consider these are the facts,
Right.
this is what is. And it's sort of true,
Yeah.
but there's also the interpretation of it so that you can take the same set of data and come up with different conclusions. Sometimes, not always, but that was a very good thing to remember that
Yeah.
that's not necessarily where all the answers are. And yeah, so I was just, I loved every single thing that you said. And my mind is going back a little bit. You talked earlier about doing these EEGs and finding this map and using the brain to kind of tell a story. And then you talked about how when we are able to heal, the mental and emotional, then the physical things heal. So, isn't it lovely how we can start here and learn something about this, and we can fix this and work something about this? When we improve any aspect of our being, it can help improve the other parts of us. And I loved how we talked earlier. A normal way to look at things is a pie chart or a bento
Hmm.
box. We keep everything separate. And you just lifted out that tray and dumped it all together and said, oh, we're more like water. It is the same in a
Yeah.
different form.
Yeah.
We are, all of these aspects of ourselves are far more the same than they are different.
Yeah. That's right. And what I love to do, especially in my own body, is to be able to, because I've had all kinds of health labels come up over the years, which is interesting because I'm not coming from a high horse place of saying anyone has this all figured out or medication is bad and this is good. Again, this is a non-dualistic way of framing it. But I can tell you that when I've been labeled with something that is supposed to be not curable, I'm like, yeah, you just double dog dared me. I'm going to now fix it. Like I'm going to get down to the root of it and certainly not need to be dependent upon a medication for it because that's my personal ethos. But then what can I learn from this? Because my body is serving me. My body is not failing. My body is serving me. My body has a divine intelligence that's showing me that something is wrong on those other levels. And so it's up to me then to be on a deep and true quest and to not get lost. I prescribe supplements. I believe in all of these things. But it's not that the answer is found in the supplements, right? It's that the answer is found somewhere else. So to be able to dive into that deeper level and to be willing and to have the courage to know ourselves. So to come back to that, right? Because so many people will say, but wait a minute, I'm a mom. I'm a single mom and I'm a CEO of a company personally. I have all the excuses I want to be able to spiritually or emotionally bypass, work myself into the ground and have a miserable life, right? Like there are
If
so
you
many
want,
ways I could. It's a
yeah.
total
And
option.
you'd win, but
I
it's not a
would.
very good win,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. No, I would get respect of people who felt sorry for me, and I'm not really into that, So like I would I would rather win and actually be joyful. I would rather win in knowing who I am and living inside of that truthful place and trusting and learning to trust, which is not always easy depending on how life circumstances have gone, but learning to trust that I'm enough, that we're each enough, that we can be safe inside of reality without all of the pretenses, without being neurotic. It's not actually it's not a badge of glory or a rite of passage. It's actually an undesirable state, and our body is telling us that either through our emotions or our thought patterns or what's going in our body, what's going on in our life, what's going on with our kids, what's going on with our relationships, that kind of thing.
That's fantastic. And sometimes we wonder, which do I want more, to be validated or to heal? Do I want to say this is the issue that I'm dealing with so that I can give myself a free pass on whatever it is that I want? Or do I want to heal? There was a word that you used that I loved and I just grabbed onto it. And that was the word labeled. You did not
Mhm.
use the word diagnosed, which is what we typically,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like, okay, this is what you are. This is, and you said, oh, that's a label. And,
Hmm.
and then you pulled it back, and it kind of goes back to the earlier conversation of when you're doing this test on your brain and saying, oh, this is telling me this information. And you are bringing up the truth that when we have some issue going on in our body, this is more information. This is another
Right.
clue that says,
That's right.
hey, there's something going on that needs to be corrected.
Hmm.
So, here's a clue, and let's see what you would like to do with that. And fortunately, there's more than one way to correct things, or we can choose not to correct it and validate ourselves and say, I now have a free pass to be miserable.
Right.
It's not where I want to go, and it's obviously not where you want to go. So,
Yeah. No, I love to work within the paradigm of almost everything is malleable, almost everything is changeable. I like to take power out of power structures that I don't think necessarily serve us. I like to empower individuals and disempower societal structures. Or, I mean, this, I mean, if we want to talk about freedom, which is quite a hot topic right now worldwide, I think that we should look to the freedom that lives within us in our ability and our framing and lens of how we view ourselves and reality. There's the fundamental freedom because otherwise we're free to work ourselves to death for a cause we don't care about. Yeah, we're free to do that. We're free to live inside of the victimhood or being stuck inside of a diagnosis or whatever, but we're also very much free. And we're the most free when we transcend that and we recognize ourselves as something much more powerful. And we see and feel into the possibility, not as an abstract concept, but as an embodied experience, as a knowing. That's how we begin to find those answers because a lot of this can feel, oh, sure, oneness. Oh, sure, mind body connection. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's not until people can bridge, until we can each really bridge what it is that's going on and who we really are as a felt experience of interconnectedness. If it's a construct, like an idea in your mind, that your mind is connected to your body somehow, some way, or that there's some sort of an interplay, right? But then it's different if you're like, oh, wow, I'm feeling really wound up in my head and I'm having these body sensations that are either chronic or cropping up in this moment, right? Like and you track and you learn to drop deeper inside of your sense of self and knowing yourself. There's universes inside. It's like exploring the bottom of the ocean. It hasn't been fully explored yet. Each of us has so much depth and dimension. And if we can be courageous and take that time, we can find the answers that we're looking for, not outside of ourselves, but inside of ourselves and have that true freedom.
and isn't that amazing? And as you're talking and explaining these things, and for some people, they might think, whoa, I just lost you there.
Yeah.
What on earth are you talking about? And for anyone who's feeling that way, don't worry about it. And
Hmm.
I loved how you described it as an ocean.
That's
So
right.
it's okay if we just want to swim at the top. It is
Hmm.
okay if we want to do a little snorkeling and go a little
Yep.
deeper.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
okay if we want to go scuba diving and go deeper,
Hmm.
because there is a whole lot of information that is available. We have a lot of answers. There's a lot of information. There's a lot to know. And this goes back again to that thing we talked about earlier. Who are you?
Yeah.
And that question of who are you? Again, we can stay at the surface. I can swim, I can surf, I can snorkel, I can scuba dive. All those
Hmm.
are okay. But you are this amazing infinite being, and you're
Hmm.
something, someone worth studying. And
Yeah.
I think maybe if that's all people want to hear at this point and just chew on it, that's okay.
Totally.
That's okay. But
Totally.
there's more. And I loved when you mentioned we have freedom and we have power.
Hmm.
They go together.
They do.
Have more power than maybe we recognize, and we have more freedom than we recognize. And so those are some things that we can dive down and recognize what we have. And we've talked about some of the wins. We can win by being justified and saying this is what's going on. Or we can win by having peace and freedom and health and happiness.
Hmm.
So people get to choose their win, um, but we want them to know that those beautiful, wonderful things are available for them. You expect miracles.
That's right.
People who are listening can expect miracles for themselves.
That's right.
This has been amazing. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we cover before we close today?
I think that in that exploration, how I loved how you put that, however deep somebody wants to take it, that they can remember that they're enough and that they're lovable and that there's nothing inside that's too scary. And my favorite line from the Shrek movie, it's better out than in. A lot of the times we can spend so much time trying to hold something in and not be with it. And it only takes a few moments if it's done skillfully. And it can be easy to release some of the very biggest things. So to not be scared of those depths and also to honor that right place for each of us in every moment. And my very last thing is that I want to offer a tool that I have that's free on the website. So if they do want to go to the Whole On website, thewholeonexperience.com, there's a breath practice that is playful and imaginative and doesn't take a lot of time and it's not hard to do. And it's very, very simple. And it can help somebody, if it resonates, to bring this in to their body, the feeling of peace and capability and expansiveness and getting out of the mind. And it's been a really powerful tool for so many people. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that's an offer and it's free and it's available for everyone.
And how do they access that? Do they just go to the website and
Go
then
to
it's
the website. There
ready to
should be
go?
a box that pops up and you put your email in and then it's emailed over to you and you get to listen to it however often. And it's a practice that can be done eyes opened or eyes closed kind of seamlessly throughout the day.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Amy. This has been delightful.
You're welcome. Thank you, Linda. What a fun conversation. Thank you for having me.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Michio Keiko. He said, "The more we understand about the intricacies of the universe, the more we can appreciate the genius of its creator." Today, I invite our listeners to find healing through the intersection of science and spirit. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.